Hello there. Having spent months saying that I'm actually going to start playing games and talking about them, I'm actually doing it this time. So hopefully you enjoy it and let me know what you think. Cheers. So, at the end of the 1980s, Michael Jackson was arguably the biggest star the world had ever seen. He'd had, at the start of the 80s, he had Thriller, which was the biggest selling album of all time. I think it still is. And he then followed that up a few years later with Bad, which was the first album to have 5 #1 singles come from one album. So where was the next logical step for him to go after doing that? Obviously, almost, it was to make his own film. So he invested $20 million of his own money into making his own film, with that film being Moonwalker. It's an interesting film, to say the very least. It's kind of like part live stuff, part music videos, part retrospective, and then the kind of centerpiece of it is the Smooth Criminal movie, which is about 40 minutes long and is just like a mini movie featuring Michael Jackson. So the film starts with live footage of him singing Man in the Mirror, then it goes on to a retrospective of his career, then it goes into a section called Badder, which is pretty much the Bad video completely redone and acted out by children, which has some quite comical elements to it. Then it's followed up by a section called Speed Demon, which is just bloody weird. Starts off with him like running away from the paparazzi, then he escapes dressed as a claymation rabbit, then we get a section of this claymation rabbit running away, then Michael Jackson ends up in some dance off with this claymation rabbit. It's just very bizarre. Then we get Leave Me Alone, which I think the video for that won a Grammy, and it's a very fun video as well. And then we get to Smooth Criminal. Smooth Criminal is a mini movie. I think it's kind of like somewhere in the 1930s to 1950s based, and it stars Joe Pesci as Mr. Big, who is the big baddie obviously, with his motivation to try and get children to stop going to school and to take drugs, because a young customer is a loyal customer. So Michael Jackson has some children who are his friends, but he's also being hunted by Mr. Big, and because there's the risk that he might uncover this massive plan. So he's being hunted, he then turns into a car, then he goes into Club 30, which is like speakeasy style, and he does like the Smooth Criminal music video, very extended cut obviously. And it's a superb video. I'm sure you must have seen it, but like the tiny details, like how everyone is moving to the exact same beat, even the people hidden away in the background are still doing their movements to that beat. Then after he comes out from there, he goes to this base, and it looks like almost a futuristic battle arena of some kind. And Mr. Big goes to inject a little girl, but then there's a shooting star. Michael Jackson turns into a robot, blasts everyone away. Then Joe Pesci runs away, and then Michael Jackson turns into a spaceship and blows him up. And then when that ends, they go back to Club 30, and then he performs Come Together, and then that's the end of the film. So it's just a great big mishmash of different things going on, just with a kind of central "Is Michael Jackson great?" theme going through it. If you look on Rotten Tomatoes, I think the reviewer score is like 50%, with the kind of general tone being that it's really impressive visually, but just completely random and hollow in many ways. I think that the word hollow is actually in the review. The user score is about 70%, which is probably, I'd like to suggest otherwise, but it's probably skewed by Michael Jackson fans voting it higher than they would necessarily. My general view on the movie itself is it's worth a watch, but you're probably not going to watch it again, other than for the music, because it is just such a mess here, there, and everywhere. So the film did pretty well financially. As I said, he put $20 million of his own money into it, and then it made $67 million at the box office, despite not having an American cinema release. So when you take into account video sales and stuff afterwards, it probably made absolute gangbusters. But then once you've done the movie, what's the next step to take? And the next step that Michael Jackson chose to take was going into games. The game was initially adapted by US Gold for home computers. I've got a copy here for the Atari ST. I've not played this version of it though, so I can't really say what's going on with that one. But then Michael Jackson himself worked with Sega to make an arcade game, and also to make one for home consoles for the Mega Drive and the Master System. And the Master System version was, the Mega Drive version was released in July 1990, so a couple of years after the film came out. The Sega version, Mega Drive version is based around the Shinobi engine, which is very noticeable when you see it through the animations and stuff, because the animation within the game is really good. And it features a lot of music from the game done kind of like chip tune style. So that's entertaining, and hopefully you'll be able to pick some of it up in the gameplay that I show you. But it features Smooth Criminal, Bad, Beat It, Another Part of Me, and Billie Jean. There's one level within it that is based around Thriller, and you'd think, well, clearly Thriller should be in there as well, but there were licensing issues at the time, because, please correct me if I'm wrong, but he didn't write all of Thriller, so he didn't own the total rights to Thriller, so they couldn't put Thriller into the game. So it's just a bit disappointing that we can't see Thriller within that. But the game covers 5 main levels based on Club 30, the streets, the woods, cavern, the enemy hideout, and then a final level, which unfortunately I've never got as far as, which is called Michael's Battle Plane. But he's a spaceship, he's not a battle plane. So that's the crux of the game overall. Sorry. And it reviewed really well initially. So like Sega Power gave it 90%, Mean Machines gave it 89%. However, when it then came to their end of year retrospectives, it dropped to like 75%, and then further retrospectives dropped it lower and lower and lower, criticising it for the repetitive nature of the game. It's relatively repetitious at times, but there is a big difficulty spike towards the end of the woods, which about halfway through the game you tended to see that a lot in a lot of games. So that's pretty much the history of the game, but now it's time for me to show you some of the gameplay that I will probably be jabbering away over. Enjoy! So from the start of the game, you go straight into Club 1930, where you flick your coin into the jukebox, and Smooth Criminal starts playing straight away. And you get a nice range of attacks. First one being, when you press B, you kind of throw magic dust as you do a punch in people's general direction, which in the early part is enough to beat most enemies. You can interact with scenery like kicking chairs into people, you can even slide down the banisters to take out large groups all at once, and then you can spin to throw your hat. That does cost some health. And then when you've got a large group, you can also hold down A, which will get everyone into a synchronised dance routine, which again, in the early part of the game, will kill everyone. But then, away from this, in some levels you will get a shooting star, and if you catch that shooting star, you will turn into Robot Michael Jackson, which means that you can fly, and then you can shoot things as well. So after Club 1930, you then go onto the streets, where you find the children hiding in cars and sitting around, and again you can do the big dance routines with everyone, and it's a very nicely designed level, and quite fun. You then go to the graveyard, which is very clearly thriller inspired, where you're fighting zombies. These are a bit tougher. They take a couple more hits to defeat than any of the others, but again, it's very similar gameplay to everything else, and as I've said before, you can see the quality of the animation, and once you know that it's done using the Shinobi engine, you can really see it while it's going on. And then from there, we move on to the cavern, which you've got spiders. There's a lot more maze type stuff going on in this as well, with extra doors you can go into, but then you get other enemies that you come across in other levels will be there, as well as all of these spiders. But again, you can do your little dance routines every now and then as well, which is always fun. Then we get onto the facility, and that's where you start doing your little dance, and you can also destroy the little computers that are over there as well, and it's still the same gameplay mechanic of find the children, find the boss, beat the boss. So once you've done all of finding the children, you then, once the last child has been saved, the screen goes dark for a bit, and you get bubbles appearing on your shoulder, and he will point you to where you need to go for the boss fight. And when you arrive there, you then get Pesci turns up, says that you'll never catch him, and then that is where the start of the boss fight comes. And then between levels, Michael lets you know you've done well, with a nice ooh. Then the final level, I've not played the final level because I'm awful at games, but you become your spaceship and you start shooting various enemies. So overall, gameplay is smooth as hell. It's really nice game to play, and it just flows really nicely, particularly in the early parts of the game. When you get the difficulty spike, that's where I struggle, because I am quite awful at games, but there's a good variety of enemies to deal with, and the gameplay loop is quite satisfying for a while. Although one thing that will get very boring very quickly is every time you save a child, hearing that little voice going, "Michael!" But again, the sound is faithful to the movie, and is also very nice to kind of have that level of accuracy to it. But the big question is this still worth playing now compared to back then? It's fun for a short while, but it's not going to be a game that you're going to be playing over and over and over again, because as the initial reviews did say when they started downgrading their scores, it is very repetitious. It's great fun hearing the music and seeing the Michael Jackson style stuff going on, but at the same time, there's only so much you can do with it. And if you look at prices for it right now, you're looking on eBay in the last month or so for a boxed copy with the manual anywhere between £35 and £60 depending on the condition, whereas CEX is selling it, I think it's £60 complete and £28 for cartridge alone, which at that kind of price, if you're on a budget for collecting and playing games, there's not going to be enough to keep you going for that kind of price. If you're a collector, it's a wonderful one to have in your collection, but I don't think it's ever going to be your favourite game. And for the money, you can find far better platform games than this, you can find far better licensed games than this. It's fun, but it's not all that. So yeah, that's where I'm at with it. Thanks for watching if you lasted this long, and if you've got any movie-based games you want me to have a look at and talk a little bit about, let me know in the comments below. Other than that, thanks for watching. Goodbye.